Good morning and welcome to the webinar. Today we're here to discuss what to look out for when choosing landlord insurance and our latest offering in RealtyProtect. I'm Darshan Palmer and I'm the marketing manager, and I'm joined here by John Tranny, our landlord specialist.
Hi Darshan, and hi everybody and welcome. Thank you for joining our webinar today.
Look, John, with so many landlord insurance products out there, what makes RealtyProtect so special?
Well, that's a good question. And you're right, Darshan, there are a lot of them out there. Look, the Real Estate Institute, we've worked really hard to, well, in answering that question, I'd probably say what makes ours special is that it's driven by voice of customer. We've asked literally hundreds of property managers what they wanted from a landlord insurance product, what was important to them. Over the years, I've actually worked with landlord insurance for over 10 years, so I've also met with a lot of landlords, and we've tried to encapsulate all that feedback and all that voice of customer into the RealtyProtect offering and into our complete marketing mix. So if we look at our marketing mix, if we were to talk about product, price, placement, and our corporate and social responsibility, I'll just talk a little bit about that, and that will tell you what's special. So if we talk about products, as the Real Estate Institute, we want to be your one-stop shop for real estate, for your real estate offices. So we're talking about landlord insurance today, but if our members out there want a quote for professional indemnity insurance, we can certainly do that. We can do landlord insurance, we can do building insurance, professional indemnity already, but literally not far away, we've got tenant insurance, we've got a short stay policy, and if the principals out there want a quote for a complete office pack, we can do that as well. So with regards to product and with regards to our landlord product, landlord insurance is one of those areas that isn't regulated, so they're all very different. We've worked hard to make sure that we've got a winning level of cover. Happy for anyone to give me a call after this if you want to challenge us on any area of it, but I can assure you that we've examined every policy on the market, and ours is up there. Of course, when it comes to landlord insurance, it's all about landlords choosing a product that meets their needs, but in terms of coverage, ours is it is a very good level of cover. With our price, for the level of coverage, we've also got a very competitive price. So our price is $360 a year, and that's for 13 months of insurance for the cost of 12 in the first year. So when we have a look at the level of cover later, you're going to see that that's really good value. For our distributor offices, so if there are any property managers out there refer cover for their landlords via the portal that we're going to talk about, or via an application form, the office gets $25 for all new business and $15 when you pay in their renewals. We spoke to a lot of property managers and we realised that every office has different needs when it comes to landlord insurance. Like, there are offices out there that only want to use paper application forms, and we've got it. There are offices out there that want their landlords to organise it themselves, and they can do that via the website or via our dedicated call centre. And then there's property managers. Most property managers organise the insurance or the quotes on behalf of their landlords, and for them, we understand that they want it to be instantaneous. So we've got a property manager portal that they can go to, which is realtyprotect.com.au, and you can get a quote in seconds for your property managers. You can organise a quote for them if they, to email the quote to the landlords, or you can initiate the full coverage if you want to. And once that's done, you don't have to wait for it to come in the post. It'll be in your inbox. Probably, I think the longest it's taken so far is about a minute and a half. So as a property manager, you don't really sort of want to be sitting there for a whole week waiting for that invoice to come in and, is my client insured? You'll know straight away. Also, the fourth area that we've put into our marketing mix is our corporate and social responsibility. Now, as the REI, we're not for profit and we're all about the betterment of our industry, but the real estate industry is one of the largest employers in Australia, and we felt, as the REI, we felt that we can make a difference to people in our community that need help. So as agents, we're all about putting people into housing, either through sales or through the property management department. But statistically, there's 114,000 people sleeping on the streets every night.
That's frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a big number. And coming into into the city every day, we see them on the road. And I think we've got a responsibility to be helping people if we can. So we've partnered with the Salvation Army, and we've pledged $5 from every new business sale and every renewal towards people experiencing homelessness. So we've already made our first payment, we're happy to say, and it's just something that we're proud of.
That's fantastic. That's great work with the Salvos such a amazing contribution.
Yeah, and look, and on that, they did sort of ask when we met with them. The reason why we chose the salvos was that we felt that a higher proportion of those charity dollars went to the end users, and they asked us, oh, where would you like to go? And there were numerous different causes. There was three actually. There was one for women and children, one for men in need, and one for adolescent kids. And it's really hard to decide, so we sort of just pledged the money to them, and they're going to need it. They'll just distribute it where it's needed most.
Fantastic.
But we can change that. And for our distributor officers, when they place cover, they'll get a certificate from us every year showing how much they've pledged or how much they've given and what difference they've made. Also, we'll be able to show them how that, where that money's gone as well. So
great.
Yeah, so it's just good as an industry that we can make a difference, as well as having great coverage, a great price, and the technology to support our property managers out there.
Excellent, John. Look, landlord insurance isn't regulated, and that all policies are different. What should people look out for, really, our property managers and for their clients?
Well, there's lots of things. So under the Insurance Contracts Act, it's all the legislation is about the consumer making an informed decision when they buy insurance. So ultimately, the product should meet the landlord's needs. But if you think about our consumer buying habits when you buy insurance, and maybe some of our property managers out there, if you think back to when you bought insurance last, I know what I normally do would just get on the phone, get a few quotes, go for the cheapest one, pay for my credit card. The product disclosure statement, the policy wording will come in the post, so I'll never read it, and then kind of cross your fingers when you go to make a claim. Now, under the Insurance Contracts Act, you've got regulated lines. So car insurance is one of those regulated lines, so landlord insurance isn't, so you should really read the book before you buy it. If you're comparing policies, normally a policy's got 4 areas of cover in the one policy. So being loss of rent, loss or damage to the contents, there's a limited building section for the areas that the strata doesn't cover, and legal liability. So if we started with the loss of rent section, ultimately you should check the coverage. But some sort of flags, like ultimate ones, does it cover continuous leases? So there are a lot of policies on the market that don't cover continuous leases. And so, you, as a property manager, you might want to check that, or as a landlord might want to check that. I can confirm ours definitely does cover continuous leases. Also, in that loss of rent section is the property manager's time at the tribunal covered. We cover the property manager's time up to $500. Does it cover for the sheriff's costs? Yes, we do cover that. Does it cover a locksmith? So, if you've got to go out there with a locksmith and the sheriff, it can be quite expensive for your landlords. And we cover locksmiths up to $3,000.
In your experience, have you had many instances of that?
Look, admittedly, the other thing, so that's another good question actually, because most claims actually come from the absconding tenants. So very few, it's pretty rare for a property manager to have to actually get a sheriff out there. So you want to check what that coverage, what your policy covers for absconding tenants, because when you look at the loss of rent section, most claims actually come from an absconding tenant. So an absconding tenant is when somebody has moved out of the rental property. You might have gone to the tribunal, but it never gets to that stage where you have to go back to the tribunal and say that there's been failure to give vacant possession. And for an absconding tenant, our policy is up there at 20 weeks loss for rent. So if, for example, if they do abscond, if you get to the tribunal, we'll cover 20 weeks. But if the sheriff has to come out, that's where there's failure to give vacant possession, then we extend out to 28 weeks. So that's what you look for in the loss of rent section. Moving forward to the contents area, I think it's really good for property managers to know that contents doesn't just mean furniture. So from an insurance perspective, the contents means the paintwork, curtains, carpets, blinds, and light fittings. And for the purpose of our policy, it does include furniture. So if it's a furnished rental house, it would cover that as well. And for our policy, it also includes anything that the strata isn't required by law to insure. So if, for example, your body corpus have got a bylaw to say that certain things aren't covered, if they give us a copy of that bylaw, then our policy will pick that up. So from the contents area, check the level of coverage. Is the sum insured enough? Ours is 60,000, 65,000. Does it cover new for old? Ours, even if your carpet's up to 20 years old, we'll replace it with new stuff for you. Does it have multiple excesses? So some policies on the market, if there's 10 events of accidental damage when your tenants move out, you'll be up for 10 excesses. Ours is capped at 1. And check those excess amounts as well. And does it cover, another area you might want to check as well is like things like drug labs. Does it cover drug labs?
And that's a really hot topic with meth residue and domestic violence as well, with obviously the new RTA amendments.
Definitely. Look, when it comes to meth, some policies on the market will cover if your drug lab's left behind. But often it could be just tenants using recreational methamphetamines, and our policy would respond to that. We'd cover it up to 65,000, and all you'd have to do is get a report to show that there is meth in the walls. Get a police event number, and it has to be a rental property, obviously. So yeah, so with contents, some insured, do you get new for old? What do the excesses look like? Make sure you're not being charged multiple excesses, but ultimately you should meet the landlord's needs in that area.
Of course. No, that's great. Yeah. Look, I understand that most claims, as you mentioned, come from loss of rent and content section. Tell us what RealtyProtect covers.
Yeah, sure. Look, so there's 4 areas of cover in our policy, and if you look at the loss of rent section, on a standard policy, it covers where the weekly rental is up to $1,500. So if you got a, if it's basically $600 a week rental or a rental at $1,500, the price remains the same, and that's where you get 13 months of insurance for the cost of 12. And I should say that's the same for building insurance as well, Darshan. So if you insured your house, we will give you that 13 months of insurance for the cost of 12 in the first year. But looking at the loss of rent section, so up to $1,500, and then it just depends on the insured event. So what has to happen to spark off that claim? And there's 2 areas. You got in the loss of rent section, there's that area where your tenant has defaulted, so they've stopped paying the rent, and then there's another area where rent could be lost because something's happened to the structure of the house. So I'll start with what if something was to happen to the structure of the house. So if, for example, there was water damage or a fire, prevention of access, or maybe there was malicious damage done to the property, and whilst those repairs get done, then our policy would cover that up to 52 weeks. Now, the other side of it, it's where a tenant has defaulted, and most claims come from this area. From what we cover there is if the tenant absconds, so they move out, and I think we described that earlier, that's up to 20 weeks, or if there's prevention of access, that's where the sheriff comes out, or the sheriff doesn't actually have to come out, but where you've been back. So usually the tribunal will say, hey, tenant, yes, you need to move out by next Friday. If they're not out on the Friday, then the property manager goes back to the tribunal and says, hey, they haven't moved out, and you get what's called an order for vacant possession. Once you've got that order for vacant possession, our policy extends out to 28 weeks. If you have 28 weeks, we pay for the locksmith up to $3,000 as well, and we pay for the property manager's time at the tribunal up to $500, and the sheriff costs, which is normally about $300. There's also, we've heard a lot about in our industry about domestic violence, and most property managers out there may have attended our training seminars or something like that with regards to that. We've responded to hardship and domestic violence, loss of rent up to 20 weeks. So we will cover the landlord's loss up to 20 weeks there. If a tenant was to pass away in a place, we'll pay the rent till you find a new tenant up to 20 weeks as well. So you've got those 2 areas where something's happened to the house, and then where you stopped, where the tenant hasn't been able to pay the rent. Then there's additional benefits as well. So we'll pay reletting costs up to $500. We'll pay the if for example your tenant moves out and leaves things in storage, then leaves things in the house, then under the Residential Tenancies Act, the property manager may need to put those in storage. We'll pay $300 towards that as well. There's a tax audit section where if, for example, a landlord is audited in reference to their rental property, they will pay those accounting costs up to $3,000 as well. And as I mentioned earlier, a locksmith up to $3,000 as well. And with our loss of rent section, there's no excess when you make a claim. We certainly do cover continuous leases or fixed term. The only difference between a fixed term lease and a continuous lease is with a fixed term, we pay right to when you found a new tenant. And with a continuous lease, we pay what that tenant is legally responsible for under the terms of the Residential Tenancies Act, which will be the 3 weeks notice. So if, for example, as a property manager at your office today, and you realise your tenant's moved out or they've left the keys at the counter, if, for example, they owe 3 weeks notice today, then they should give you 3 weeks notice. So our policy would cover 6 weeks coverage.
Sounds very comprehensive. That's great. Look, did
you want me to cover the contents, or?
I think so. Yeah. I think
okay.
let's go through the content.
All right, cool. As you can see, I get pretty excited about landlord insurance. So
you're a rare breed.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. look, having done it for so long and being so part of this project, I just wanted to make sure, as part of the REI, and Tim, our CEO, he just really wanted our, if we're going to put the REI logo on it, we wanted it to be a good policy. Of course, it's up to property managers and their landlords to make sure it's a good policy for them, but I can assure you we've done our best and done the analysis.
And you've been in the industry a long time, haven't you?
That's right, probably a very long time. Been with the REI now for a year and a half, but in the industry for a long time. Moving to the contents area, so on a standard policy, the sum insured is 65,000, and then with regards to the insured events, I've got those here. I just don't want to forget anything, but they're where we've got water damage, we've got storm damage, accidental damage, we cover domestic violence. Sometimes there's that in-between area where it's not malicious damage, so tenants haven't willfully and intentionally damaged the house, and it hasn't been an accident either. They've just decided that maybe that room would look better a different color or something like that, so they might have painted the room a different color, or maybe we had a person take out a section of fencing so they could get their boat into the backyard. Somebody once painted a timber kitchen white. For all those sorts of things, they're covered up to $65,000 as well. With drug labs, we will cover if the drug lab is left behind, or even if it's just the meth residue that's in the wall, so that's covered up to $65,000. Pet damage is certainly covered. That's covered up to $10,000 for a domestic pet.
That seems quite a lot for a pet.
It is, but we just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
Again,
sure.
we wanted to make sure.
I'm sure you've got some stories of what you've seen in the past, but
yeah, I think most people these days, they're pretty good with their pets. But like sometimes, I had a situation once where the dog chewed away at the timber frame or doorway or something like that, or it could be a cat just clawing the carpets, so that's covered up to $10,000. Now, if it's malicious damage, so if there has been malicious damage done to the property, not only would we pay the repairs up to $65,000, but we'd also pay for the loss of rent whilst those repairs get done up to 52 weeks. So what a property manager would need to do is, first of all, give us a call, because an assessor may need to have a look at it. They report it to the police, and then we cover the loss of rent whilst those repairs get done. So to illustrate a claim, like suppose, I know of one where there was malicious damage done to a property, and the tenant subleased the bedroom. The person was an ice addict. They kicked in all the gyprock walls, kicked the kitchen cupboards in, and all those sorts of things. So there was, so in a claim like that, we'd pay up to $65,000 for those repairs. But you've got a landlord who, whilst their house is being restored, still needs to make their bank repayments. So we'd be paying the loss of rent whilst the repairs got done, if it fell under malicious damage. And a drug lab would fall under that as well. You've got the other situation where, suppose there's a fire or water damage claim. Again, the tenant may not be able to live in the place anymore, or they might, if the bedroom's washed out, the lounge room's washed out, they might not want to pay the loss of the full rent, and they probably shouldn't have to pay the full rent whilst those repairs get done. So we'd cover that portion of rent as well. Now, I could probably hear property managers out there asking, what are the excesses? So our excesses are quite reasonable as well. So if it's for accidental damage claim, it's $250. If it's theft, it's $500. So it's either $250 or $500. But what we have got in our policy wording is that you will never pay more than one excess for that one event. So if, for example, there were 10 events of accidental damage, you'd be up for $250 for that. But if at the same time the tenants moved out and happened to steal, probably wouldn't happen very often, but they steal the landlord's furniture, or decide to take the dryer with them or something like that, then that excess would be $500. So you'd be up for $750. Some insurers on the market will charge you an excess for every event. So I was at a property investor show once, speaking to a lady who had her property insured with quite a popular insurer, and I think her excess was something like $7,500.
Does it make it worthwhile?
Was it worth it? Yeah,
that's right.
They gave her the depreciated value on the carpets. There was a 4-week excess on the loss of rent. She walked away with about $600 out of that. Geez. So it is really one of those areas where you've got to read the policy wording and check what you're covered for.
Thank you. Thanks for unpacking that content section. I know it's obviously very comprehensive. So
yeah, look, it's just all about reading the book. But let's face it, insurance is boring. and or for most people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important to read that.
Right. As you know, property managers are very busy. So, you know, how does Realty Protect or the portal, I know you touched on that, benefit them and really their consumers?
Yes, look, we've got a portal. It's linked to our website. So our website is realtyprotect.com.au, and the whole journey, the whole customer journey starts and ends on the portal. As an agent, you can go there. You'll see I'm a property manager, or I'm a real estate agent, or I'm a landlord. So if you were to go in there as I'm an agent, you can start the journey as registering to become a distributor. So with that, all we need is your office details, your ABN number, and your general account details. There's some questions and guidance about your role as a distributor, and there's two key things which I should mention. First of all, you can't give personal advice, or you can't give advice. So it's all about, you know, you can say to landlords, hey, we've got a policy that we can arrange cover for on your behalf. Here's the policy wording. You can give factual information from the policy wording. But if, for example, a landlord said to you, "Oh, what do you think?" You know, it's all about the landlord deciding it at the end of the day. So that's what the distributor authority is about. And the other thing is that you need to disclose your commissions. So the journey starts on that portal as becoming a distributor. After that, when you register, we'll give you a username and log on.
Mm-hmm.
You can log on to the system. And as a property manager, you know, we know people told us they're concerned about who's insured, so you can check who's insured on there. You can check what invoices you haven't paid. You can get a quote really quickly for both landlords insurance or building. So if it's a house, they'll need the building as well as the landlord component. They can get that. They can organise a quote to go to their landlord, or they can purchase the product for their landlord. And then when it comes to making a claim, they can initiate that claim from the portal as well. So we tried to make it as comprehensive as possible.
Fantastic. I mean, I know it's that time of the year where people are claiming their tax. Can the portal help consumers, the clients?
Look, if the landlord wanted a copy of the invoice or something like that, they could get that off there from the list of insureds. But yeah, like if they wanted to place cover quickly, they could as well.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing is when a property manager places cover, it's instantaneous. Like, as a property manager, you know, most of you guys out there would be really, really busy. The last thing you want to do is be checking the post every day to make sure that insurance premium has come in and that the landlord's actually insured. With our system, they can get on there, place the cover, and they'll have the invoice in probably about a minute, just depending on how fast the server times are. So
sounds efficient and streamlined.
Yeah,
which is terrific.
Yeah, so we've got a great product, we've got a great price, and we've got the portal as well.
Brilliant. You mentioned earlier that REINSW has made a commitment of raising $1 million over 5 years, which is remarkable. Can you tell us more about that and
Yeah, cool.
partnership with Salvation Army?
Well, look, this is something that's really passionate to me, and I know it's passionate to all of us here at the REI. We do need your help out there, property managers, to reach our goal, of course. But yeah, like as I mentioned earlier, $5 for more new business sales and renewal. So it's not just about getting your business. Like, we're going to support these guys right through the insurance journey. And we haven't, like, you know, people have asked, oh, did you just increase the price on that or something like that? We haven't done that at all. We've taken it out of our profit, and really, like, you know, and we've only been going for a short time, but we've already been able to make a payment of $2,000 towards that.
That's
and
brilliant.
It just feels so good that, you know, it's not like we don't really feel it. As an industry, we can make, it's just so good that as an industry we can make a difference to other people's lives through something which is so small but can grow so big. So yeah, so with insurance, because it compounds, you know, it compounds year after year. We are getting tenant insurance as well, and we're going to try and incorporate those charity dollars in that as well. You know, we're definitely aiming for the $1 million.
Fantastic. It's great to give back to the community.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. So look, let's say I've got a property, and let's just say worst case scenario that the sheriff has had to get rid of them.
Yep.
For non-payment of rent.
Yep.
How would Realty Protect respond?
Yeah, cool. We respond in many ways. Let me ask you a question. I hope you've got an REI member managing your property, Darshan.
Yeah, well, in fact, the principal, the licensee in charge, sits on our board, so
Oh,
a
that's good.
very,
All right,
very
awesome.
prominent member.
Okay, so let's assume, you've obviously got a good property manager there. And it's just one of those things that happen. So, did you say you had to go to the tribunal?
Yes,
You had to evict them?
that's right.
Okay, cool. So if the sheriffs come out to evict that tenant, then from our loss of rent section, we cover up to 28 weeks loss of rent. If it was a fixed term lease, then we pay right to when you found a new tenant. If it was week to week, then we pay on the date that you finally got possession back. There'd be no excess for your loss of rent. You'd use your bond for cleaning and reletting costs. If there was a reletting cost or the agent's cost, then we'd contribute $500 towards that. If after they moved out, you needed to put the tenant's stuff in storage, we'd contribute $300 towards that. Also, we'd pay the property manager's time at the tribunal up to $500, the sheriff's costs up to $300, the locksmith up to $3,000. So far there's no excess for your landlord.
Sure.
Then if, for example, you went down to the house and there's holes in the walls, marks on the carpets, and damage has been done to the house. So
you really are talking worst case scenario.
yeah. So then the excesses would just vary. So if it was malicious damage, it'd be just one excess. If it was accidental damage, that would also just be one excess. But then if there was theft as well, then there'd be a second excess there.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. So as a landlord, you still got your bankrupt payments to make and all those sorts of things. Your house would be restored, your loss of rent would be covered, and you'd be well protected with RealtyProtect.
All right. Well, where do I sign up? That sounds super.
Signing up. Okay, cool. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, website. You can go to our portal. You can place cover as a landlord, or your property manager can do it.
And the website address is?
Yeah. So it's RealtyProtect.com.au. RealtyProtect.com.au. Okay, great. Yeah.
And
cool.
I would need to go speak to my property manager, wouldn't I?
Absolutely. So as a property manager, if your landlords come to you and want to buy RealtyProtect, you need to become a distributor. We can do that. Again, you can do that instantly through our website, but it does take about 24 hours for us to set up a username and password for you. But if anyone needs it speed tracked or something like that, fast tracked, sorry, we can do that for them as well. Just let us know. If there's property managers out there that become distributors, one of our team will go out and visit that office, or if they're in a regional area, then we can do it by video link as well, which a lot of people seem to prefer.
Fantastic. Look, I think we've probably got time for one quick question.
Sure.
We've actually got a couple, so we'll be very quick though.
Okay.
But we've got a question here from Noble. So, in the view of recent building defects and aluminium cladding issues, how will it affect premiums now and in the future? Okay.
Yeah, look, that's a good question. I know, for example, there was that property in Mascot, and with all insurance, look. With building defects, it's a bit like a car. Like, for example, if you buy a brand new car from Toyota and you're driving it down the road and the windscreen falls off, NRMA is not going to, so I shouldn't use other insurers' names, but your insurer is not going to pay for that because it's a manufacturer's defect. So it's the same. Like, if it's a building defect, you've got to go back to the builder if they're responsible for it. If it's subsidence of a rental, if it's subsidence and like there's a building in Mascot, for example, that we might have seen on the media, and it just depends on the circumstances of what's made that building fall down. Most insurance policies on the market have a clause in there to say that if it is due to erosion of the soil or movement of the soil, unless it's earthquake, then it's not covered. So unfortunately, it's one of those things that the sinking fund would have to pay for.
Right.
There are other things that aren't covered by insurance, and anything that's a maintenance issue, and property management land, that's normally like things like rising damp, and that's because of the damp course has gone. If it's mold, if it's just because somebody's kept the window shut, then that's covered. That's considered as a cleaning cost, which would come out of the bond. If it's due to a broken roof tile, then that would be covered. Other maintenance issues, flickering lights. So people have called me and say, "Hey, my lights are flickering." you cover that, and no insurance doesn't cover that. It's a bit like a car. If your car gets an oil leak or you need to change the brakes or something like that, it doesn't cover those things. So with the maintenance issue, it just depends on what's caused the maintenance issue. The ones that we would cover, if, for example, there was if the place got flooded, if there was a heavy storm, those sorts of things. A truck went through the place, that would be covered.
Okay. Thank you for the question. We'll go for this for another question.
So the other question from Raylene. So does your insurance cover require an order from NCAT to make a claim for loss of rent?
Yeah, that's a good question, Raylene. Look, it's assumed that as a property manager, you'll follow the process. So, for example, on the 15th day, you should issue a termination notice, and then then once that's finished, you proceed to NCAT to reduce the loss. We understand that as property managers, you can't always issue the termination notice on the 15th day. You might do that on the 21st day. That's absolutely fine. But yeah, it's assumed that you would go to NCAT to evict the tenant and reduce the loss. So with all insurance claims, there's in all insurance policies, there's always something in there that that you should try to reduce the loss. So what we mean by that is if there's a water tap, a burst water pipe, you should turn the water off. If it's the tenants haven't paid the rent, then you should go through the proper channels. We do understand that as property managers, it could be a public holiday, or something like that, and you can't issue that notice on the 15th day. That's absolutely fine. The only time that the claim would be reduced is if you've got a property manager and if you've got a landlord and the landlord says, tenants have been there for so long, don't issue a termination notice. Then the claim would still be paid out, but it would be assumed that the landlord has held that risk themselves. So if, for example, you go to make a claim and instead of paying out 28 weeks, they might pay you out 26 weeks or something like that, because it's assumed that the landlord has held the risk themselves for that couple of weeks whilst they held off that termination notice. So yeah, Raylene, I hope that answers that question properly. If not, give me a call and happy to discuss it further.
Fantastic, and we'll be giving your details at the end of this webinar. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can get in touch with you directly.
Yes. So with that, if you want to register to become a distributor, RealtyProtect.com.au, they can do that. Alternatively, give me a call or send me an email.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Just two more questions. So one from Leanne is there cover for commercial or retail properties?
Thanks for your question, Leanne. No, we don't have a policy for commercial properties. With residential tenancies, it's regulated by the Residential Tenancies Act, so it's really easy, or not really easy, but it's easier to put a policy together. Commercial policies have got so many variables. You'd literally be writing one policy for every type of commercial. So unfortunately, we don't.
And is it for property managers only that need to get this cover, or? No,
anyone can buy it. Self-managed properties can buy it. Property managers can buy it for their clients. Landlords can, all landlords can buy it directly if they want to.
Okay. That's great. Look, thank you for joining us. We
Thanks,
hope,
everyone. Thank you.
You got some insight as to what to look for when choosing the right insurance product for you. And thank you, John.
My pleasure. Thanks for tuning in today. And by all means, if we can have one of our team go out to visit people, or we can set up a video link for people's team meetings as well. So,
and I think it's really important that everyone tries to read the small print.
Yes, we can take away one message, read the product disclosure statement, check what you're covered for.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.